Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Kayla Unfiltered, the Housing Call-In Show. We're back, and this is our first show of 2026, and I'm excited to kick it off with another year of real conversations about housing issues impacting landlords, tenants, and taxpayers across Ontario. For those who are new here, my name is Kayla Andrade. I'm the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, and I'm also the ambassador to Front Lobby and Landlord Credit Bureau. This show exists because housing providers are too often left out of the conversation, and tonight proves exactly why. I'm joined tonight by Jason Patelli, a housing provider, sharing his firsthand experience, and we're diving in and breaking down a decision that should concern every landlord in Ontario. Last week, the City of Waterloo passed a renovation license bylaw, despite staffs confirming only 34 applications for over 5 years. That backdrop for tonight's conversation. And we'll talk about what it really means, what's really happening, why cities are copying each other, and the unintended consequences no one wants to discuss. This is a call-in show, so jump into the comments over on YouTube, share your thoughts, or sign up to tell your story on the channel, just like Jason is. Your experience matters, and it holds our decision makers accountable. And tonight, it isn't about optics; it's about the outcome. So let's get into it. Jason, thank you so much for having the guts to come on a live show, talking about something that I believe a lot of people are passionate about it. The landlords are passionate, the tenants are passionate about it, and of course, our elected officials who want to vote on a renovation license. I don't know if they're passionate about it or they're just using it as a tactic because it is 2026. And you know what that means, Jason? What kind of year is it?
No, it's an election year.
It's an election year. And this is where we're going to see a lot of policies coming from different municipalities. They love to look at each other, and you know what? I think if you're a municipality and you're starting to look at each other, I think it's best that you just leave the province to deal with it. And that's something that they're not doing. They're not letting the province do their job. They're they're driving outside of their lane. And I really hope that our province and our elected officials at the provincial level get to see tonight's show so that they can understand what's happening in the trenches, what's happening in the grassroots of these type of policies, and getting to listen to landlords like myself, landlords like you, and for anyone who's in the comments. So, Jason, before we get started, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of Ontario Landlords Watch. I've been to a number of your annual general meetings, and your overall advocacy is top notch. So, thanks for having me on, Kyle.
Thank you. You're making me blush on here. I got a tan from being in Dominican. I can't make me blush.
Yeah. No, it's great, and the speakers that you have are always fantastic as well. I remember listening to Ryan, Melissa, and any number of other heavy hitters in the industry. And I also want to start off by saying, for anybody who's watching this who's not necessarily a landlord, but either wants to become a landlord or is currently a tenant, or both sides are going to watch this, obviously. I want to make it clear as well before we get going. I've been a tenant for way longer than I've been a landlord.
Ooh, you're going to be juicy then.
Right. So, and many people have, right? A lot of people started off as tenants and they bought their own property and then went up, right? And so I just want to make that clear. But yeah, having read the renovation bylaw, first a bit about myself. I've been investing in the province for the past for 13 years or so.
Nice.
I started off, as a first year. Back then, I was a first year teacher. I bought my first property, fixed it, rented it. The BRRRR method. For those who aren't familiar with it, buy, renovate, refinance. Sorry, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat.
The BRRRR.
Yeah. I did that a couple of times, and even as a teacher, I consider myself a pretty decent contractor as well. Like I can do the contracting part of things, but I have since moved on to I have since left teaching, and I have moved on to becoming a full-time realtor. I'm with Bosley Real Estate, based here in Leaside in Toronto, and I help clients do the exact same thing. I help clients basically escape the 9-to-5 or just grow their family or grow their wealth through real estate, and specifically through finding undervalued real estate, fixing it, refinancing it, usually changing the asset class as well. So a single family becomes a duplex or a single family becomes a triplex.
Yep.
Away you go. And
that's how we want to teach that to other landlords so that we can create more landlords, more housing, more flexibility, more units for tenants. And instead, we have our municipality ignoring what you do, ignoring how we get more supply to the market, and they start choking out the housing providers. They start to demonize landlords right across Ontario. If it's not the province, the province finally woke up. The province finally woke up with Bill 60, but now we have our municipalities coming in and being the villain towards the landlords. So give everybody a little context, because we have landlord licensing that has been obviously wide through Waterloo. We got it in Hamilton. You got it in Toronto. Like, that is something that obviously the landlords are trying to do. It doesn't really do anything. No. But again, it's just a cash grab in itself with landlord licensing. But to give you some local context, and this is information that was pulled from the Waterloo council meeting. So they talked about the local contacts. They have stated that the landlord and tenant board data shows that 34 applications of N13 eviction notices issued to tenants in Waterloo have gone to the tribunal over the past 5 years, guys. 5 years. Like,
seven
I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
This is into the approximately of 21,000 rental units available across the city. Obviously, they really don't know, because they really don't know how many units that are quite out there. So I like to know where they get their number, because they always put approximately. Informal or uncontested N13 applications are likely much higher. No way to track those true numbers. And again, I like to take it. Let's take this down for a little bit. I want to talk about that part of it, Jason, with you.
Sure.
When they talk about an N13 given to the landlord and tenant board, it's in good faith, you would assume, right? It's always going to be in good faith. How and I believe that the renovation or the renovation bylaw that they're trying to create is to crack down on bad actors. But when you get to hear the delegations and you get to hear the elected officials, it just sounds like they just want to make it harder for a landlord to evict a tenant in order to do the renovations to their unit. And even though there's going to be landlords out there that said, hey, tenant, I'm going to evict you because I am going to be needing to do renovations to this property. And those tenants may vacate on their own. They actually may take a cash for keys deal. And maybe they don't even go to the landlord and tenant board, but they made a point through their presentation to state that there is going to be those type of applications that don't make it to the landlord and tenant board. What do you think about that?
Right. Well, one of the things that struck me about that slide at first, and I watched the council meeting as well, so thank you for forwarding it to me. We've seen similar kind of action or similar legislation either passed or tried to be passed. One of the things that strikes me immediately is, in basic economics, you've got supply and demand. I can't do much about the demand, but I can do a little bit about the supply, and so can any landlord, right? We can all invest and create more supply. I think, while well-intentioned, these policies are unbelievably misguided. Your slide just showed 34 N13 contested N13 notices over the past 5 years.
Yep.
Translates as about 7 a year or one every 2 months ish. I mean, I'm sure your next couple slides is going to show the budget for.
Well, they have a little chart, and again, like, this chart can fluctuate because we're looking at more supply coming to the market. We don't know if it's private landlords dealing with renovations to kick out tenants on existing units, or are we talking about our developer friends who are buying properties and they're trying to create more properties? There's no proper breakdown, but no matter which way we spin it, between residential landlords, developer landlords coming in and issuing N13 notices, the fact remains is that we have 34 in the span of 5 years, and they're making it appear to be a crisis. It's such a crisis that they feel the need to introduce a rental renovation license bylaw requiring a license application to submit whenever an N13 renovation notice is issued by the landlord, requiring evidence of the building permit and letter for the qualified person, typically an engineer, because that's not, cheap, stating the vacancy is required, completing the work. Now, I think people forget that we did have bills, I believe it's Bill 97, that stated that landlords have to have a contractor information stating that the unit does need to be vacant in order to complete the necessary repairs. And this is the type of evidence that you need to attach to your N13 application if you're going to the landlord and tenant board. Why we have to give it to the city and then have to give it to the landlord and tenant board. And in this council meeting, guys, and I will post, I'm actually going to get this information and put it in the chat of this council meeting. They stated the province and the landlord and tenant board has the jurisdiction. No matter if you get a license, if you don't get a license, it's up to the province and it's up to the landlord and tenant board to issue the eviction. So this in itself is just a cash grab, and they know that they know that there's landlords that need to renovate their aging infrastructure, but most importantly, there's landlord licensing in Waterloo. And they know through landlord licensing that they come and they do their inspections and they're going to issue that work needs to be done. And now they're just able to captivate. So we're going to carry on with you. They're also requiring the tenants to provide a copy of the application package, issued a license, and the tenant and landlord rights and obligations information package. So back in the day, we had the RTA thing that we had to give our tenants all the time. Now the municipalities are coming in and saying that we have to give the tenants an application. And what boggles my mind, Jason, is that in the N13, in the form that these tenants get, it outlines what?
It outlines exactly the works that need to be done, names, dates, all the pertinent information.
You do not have to move out. Like I'll put this in the group chat as well. You got reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3 of why they're getting this notice. The termination date, it gives you the time frame of when the landlords are supposed to leave. If you don't agree to this, you do not have to move out if you disagree with what the landlord has put in this notice. However, the landlord can apply to the landlord and tenant board to evict you. They are provided with free legal aid as tenants at the landlord and tenant board. And this is what most of these councillors in the city of Waterloo ignore, or are trying to ignore it, or they're just dumbfounded, is that if there is a landlord that is doing this in bad faith, the fines at the provincial level are very, very hefty. We're talking $100,000 for an individual, and we're talking $500,000 for a corporation. Like this is not Mickey Mouse numbers. They understood that there was a little bit of a gap, that landlords were starting to abuse it. They put these measures in place to protect these tenants. But what these tenant unions are advocating for is not for, the bad faith actors. They're advocating because they just don't want to be evicted for renovations. They want the landlord to have to work around them. How hard is it, Jason, to work around a tenant inside of you've done renovations, like tell us how hard it would be with the current rules and regulations. Like, what do we have to do to work around these tenants?
Well, it's an obvious answer. I'm glad you asked, Lily. I went through this about a year ago with so I purchased a rental income property outside of Toronto, and unfortunately, the seller didn't deliver it vacant possession. So that means that I basically, for those viewers that don't know what these forms mean, the N13 is a notice to evict based on renovations, and an N11 is a notice to evict. It's basically a mutual release between the landlord and the tenant. Unfortunately, when you become a landlord, if you purchase a property and it is tenanted, whether you like it or not, you automatically become that person's landlord, whether that person had a lease agreement in place or not. I've seen this more than once. Anyway, the long and short of it, Kayla, is to answer your question, I ended up paying 3 people a lot of money, 4 people actually a lot of money to leave a property. That's basically what it boils down to. So I'll go back to what I said earlier on, misguided legislation. You know, I think that they're attacking the problem of homelessness or housing insecurity from the wrong angle. Instead of attacking it from the angle of like, let's make it harder for landlords and put extra regulation on them or fines or greater this or that.
Mm.
Instead of doing that, I think, for example, Bill 60, which you roundly criticized, as others, right? Right.
I'm still smiling over that one. I got to see it come to life, though.
Right. And I'm sure, we're going to start to see the effects soon enough. But one of the effects that I don't think people realize that I couldn't even find the number online. I was like, checked out how many units are available for rent in Toronto right now. And I don't mean vacant and non-vacant. I just mean total. How many, let's say 1-bedroom and bachelors, which is the bulk of the market. How many are available for rent? And the fact of the matter is, just like in Waterloo, you don't know. Because a lot of people have done renovations, put in like mini suites in their basement, haven't pulled permits. And again, this is the problem, right? When you make things hard for people, it's not as if they stop doing whatever it is that they were about to do. They just find workarounds. On a much broader level.
Don't talk about vacant units, because that's why we got vacancy tax, because we have vacant units.
Again, the vacancy tax again, it's just socialist or like a communist kind of mentality that's just mind-numbing. Who in their right mind is going to pay a vacancy tax if they didn't bother pulling permits in the first place, if they got an illegal unit in their basement? No one, right? Instead of, there's a fantastic saying by an ancient Roman senator. I'm gonna misquote the person, but it basically says something to the effect of, the more laws a state needs to have, the weaker the state is. Right? A strong state doesn't need to legislate everything. Right? What you need to do is empower your citizens, push the power down to your citizens, let citizens make the appropriate decisions, and they will. What bothers me about, again, you've had it much worse than I have in this instance, but what bothers me a lot about when I hear, either tenant unions or just go on, log on to Facebook tenant groups, you'll see this sort of like vitriol, like as if landlords are the devil. I'm like, where did we get this idea?
They're getting it because of elected officials, because deep down our elected officials, they're not experts. They're not experts in this field. They're not experts in every field. So they're grasping at straws, and they see the power of these tenant unions coming together. Why? Because they do get grant money. It's on the government website, which I can actually want to pull this information up and put it on this video afterwards. And they also get donations from other nonprofit organizations, and they're getting the funding to fight, but they're also teaming up with unions like CUPE, who their job is to promote the NDP agenda. So you get that kind of like, they're grasping at straws. They don't know what to do. So they listen to these groups of people, not going ahead and listening to not only themselves and doing their own research. They're not even listening to city staff, Jason. Like city staff of Waterloo, the city staff of Kitchener, all of them said, this is not practical. And I'll tell you a little bit why it's not practical in a minute, but I just wanted to put one of our members' comments here. Again, this bylaw is without operation, and it's interfering with the RTA and Municipal Act that does not give them the authority for this. And the Municipal Act prevents them from doing this under Section 14.1. But when you're listening to the actual staff, and he's saying, like, if the tenants or the landlords don't go ahead and they don't get a license, we're going to fine them, and we can actually go to the provincial court if we need to. Like, how much is that going to cost?
Right.
On 34 applications.
Yeah, and what they don't quite grasp about this is that nothing happens within a vacuum. Nothing. So if you want to pass legislation or pass whatever laws or regulations or new taxes or fines or fees or the vacancy taxes Stephanos is putting up right now, fine, go ahead. You can pass whatever you want. Hell, the mayor, Olivia Chow, talked about taxing rain or taxing whatever, rainwater or by square footage. Jesus Christ. I mean, you can pass whatever you want. Can you enforce it? That's one question. But more importantly, much more importantly than can you enforce it or not, let's say you can enforce and you pass legislation that's ridiculous in any way, shape, or form.
Now let's get into the tenant support liaison, because this is another section of this bill that was passed in Waterloo, where they're going to be a 2-year pilot for tenant support as a single point of contact for tenants experiencing eviction, housing instability, of other challenges with their landlords, and that it provides navigating and support, including RTA and clarification, the LTB process guidance, and connection to the existing legal, social, and housing services. I'm telling you guys, we have ChatGPT, and we have tenants using ChatGPT to navigate their rights. So But hey, this comes with a price tag of $20,000 annually for tenant support, funding by the tenants facing financial hardship. And again, I think this is coming based on we have these tenant unions who are in front of council. They're the ones who brought this to council. They're actually asking City of Cambridge councillors to bring forth such a policy. So they know it's coming. The landlords didn't know it's coming. That's why they weren't at this meeting on the 19th, because we had no clue, because it's not our motion. And then these people are asking to have more support, because more support to them is meaning more to these organizations, more money to them. In reality, they have all the support that they need. They have free legal aid. They also have groups on Facebook teaching them on how to go through the loopholes and how to avoid eviction. So to say that they don't know their rights when their rights are clearly stated on the landlord and tenant board, but guess what? These elected officials at the municipal level fall for it, or they don't just fall for it. They know what's actually happening, but they're going to side with these people because they believe that they have 190,000 members. And that to them thinks, oh, votes. We have votes. Sorry, I get so passionate about this.
It's okay. It's, pandering to either a cash grab or a voting grab. Look at it whichever way you want. But again, to my earlier point, which I think you touched on here, you can pass whatever legislation you want, but what you can't control are the after effects of it. So if you want to tax this, that, for example, we've raised property taxes in this province now, I don't know how much. Sure, you can do all that. You can put all these extra regulations on people, or extra restrictions, or extra taxes. But to pretend that these actions exist within a vacuum is ridiculous. And it doesn't matter if you're a landlord, tenant, whatever, just a citizen with a brain. You understand that nothing happens in a vacuum. The best and most efficient and most effective way in this province, and what I find ironic, which I'm sure you do as well, is that of all countries in the world, we have a housing problem here in Canada where we're blessed with natural resources that most people would kill for. People have killed for them. Yeah. Wars have been fought over the natural resources that we just kind of take for granted, like 33% of the world's fresh waters, forests as far as the eye can see. Of all the countries to have a problem with housing, the fact that we have it here is just, if it's
they're just playing politics with it. It could be good. It could be really good, but they know let's keep the hostility between landlords and tenants, because if landlord and tenants, because we would agree on a lot of things, but if we keep us separate and they keep feeding that agenda, there is an MPP. I commented on her page tonight. She's having a town hall, and she's having a town hall with Acorn. She's having it with a tenant activist. Where's the landlords in that town hall? But I had to look her up, and she's obviously an NDP MPP, and leaving the landlords who hold majority of the small landlords holding majority of our housing stock, keeping them away. If they really wanted to crack down on the actual crisis, they would be bringing us to that table. They would be saying, what do you need to house these people?
For sure. And the crazy part is, once again, if you were relatively nice, let's call it, to smaller landlords, like mom and pop shop landlords, then they wouldn't be afraid to rent out their basements anymore, or their whatever extra units they've got. They wouldn't be afraid of the landlord-tenant board, because they'd understand that there's a relatively safe and quick resolution procedure. And they wouldn't be afraid, and understand that we're basically on the same side. I'm a provider, you're a consumer, we're making a mutually beneficial trade.
And being a renter is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It makes sense to rent now than it actually does to own.
Correct. We've all been there.
But when you have elected officials keeping that divide, spending taxpayers' money, that's the key here, spending taxpayer money on programs to address a non-issue, right? Like the City of Waterloo staff, they gave options. These are the options. Maintain the current service level recommended. They recommended that. Option 2, tenant support liaison and tenant support fund. Option 3, the renovation, licensing, and tenant support liaison. And you're probably wondering, what is the cost for all of this, right? Yeah. And we have to really look at that. So we have to look at option 1, option 2. But this is the one they picked.
It should be noted here as well that there has never been nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Right? So number one, no matter how temporary a government program is, don't worry. Like income taxes came in after the First World War as a temporary measure to raise money for the war. Where'd that go?
And
And these
that's
these
perfect.
budgets just triple it. Like just these numbers are basically just Mickey Mouse money to me. Take whatever you're looking at on the screen, like triple it, because it's never ending and it only ratchets one way. It just goes up and up.
It's the pilot program in Hamilton for landlord licensing. They did it on wards. I can't remember the 2 wards. It was 2 full wards and half of a ward, and it was a pilot. Now it's permanent, and eventually within 2 years, they want it citywide of a landlord licensing. And you wonder why you don't have developers coming in. It's not just the development fees and, give us a donation in lieu of affordable housing, or the inclusionary zoning that they have going on there. It's about just policies like this, right? So same thing that's happening. This is always going to be something that sticks around. They also at this council meeting, and I want to give like a huge shout out to the mayor of Waterloo. That girl was speaking common sense. I don't know what happened to her colleagues, but for the mayor, she said, like, I'm not in the business of taking on more responsibilities of the province to do this. There was a gentleman, Royce, of a councillor. He's like, maybe this will convince the province to like do their job if we implement this. No, like you're not dealing with children. Like
No.
you think you're going to do this, but this is what taxpayers are going to be paying for 34 applications. Now I can get it. I can get like a big landlord comes in, he's got lots of units, and guess what? He's buying it at a deal. Why? Because it needs renovations, it needs care, it needs, like, we have aging infrastructure, and it makes sense to offer the tenants either a cash for keys deal because you want to get more money for the units because you're putting money into it. But at the same time, tenants are allowed to move back in at the same rate when a landlord is doing an N13 application. And let's be clear, obviously, if there's a demolition happening, the permit has to come from the city. And I think that's where a lot of that incentive planning from the province to give municipalities money in lieu of them building housing. It's been like a competition. Some got money, some didn't. Some are like embarrassed that they couldn't meet their demands on getting housing built. But when you see a municipality like Waterloo, like Hamilton, like Toronto coming up with policies, when is it that our elected officials are going to come in and say, hey guys, no, that's our job. You can't be doing this, because the province did something really, really good. And now the municipalities are coming in and playing tug of war with actually solving a major issue that we have here. Now, I would like to ask people in who's watching, if it's live, it's recorded, like, put in here, like, would you invest in Waterloo? And I want you to be able to reach out to the Waterloo elected officials, because they need to know this information. Because I also want to make sure that I'm going to put who is actually running in Waterloo, because obviously we want to have a face to the Waterloo Council. So I want to make sure that we provide you with that information. This is about a challenge to let you know who's who. And they're voting on policies like this. Why? Because it's going to be an election issue, especially housing. It's always an election issue at municipal time. I want you to see the people who voted for such a policy. So here is a link to all of the people that currently are sitting on council, and Mayor Dorothy is someone who didn't vote for this. So take that for what it's worth. So I just want to be able to put that for you guys. But I want to be able to stress the need to see how it's not right for municipal government to come in and create a policy and a program just to gain votes. This is why housing is supposed to be with the province.
Yeah, again, it's as I think we've hit on here, it's a tax grab. It's a bit of a vote grab as well. And I can answer your question from just now. I was considering investing in Waterloo. I'm probably going to purchase another rental income unit this year, but I mean, this pretty much takes me out of Waterloo. There's no way, right? And that's what they don't understand. Again, no legislation happens within a vacuum. So if you want to produce this or that legislation, go for it. But if you're really trying to attract investment in the form of, people like myself who will get down and dirty and really take a down and out type property and gut it and turn it all nice and pretty and new and rent it out again. First off, I just want to get it before we get torn apart in the comments. Someone's going to say like, "Oh, they're doing it for profit."
I'm trying to bring everyone's comments up, but like I'm not ignoring them. I'm also trying to read them, so I'm gonna like at the end we're gonna kind of like make sure that we give you recognition, because this is what it's about, is about taking your voice, what your opinions are, and highlighting on this show as well. Jason is the guest, but you guys are the guests as well.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments right now, and they're actually like hilarious. These guys are great. Some of the names I recognize too. I'm like, this guy's hilarious. But again, we laugh about it a bit, but it really is not that funny. It's ironic as well that groups like Acorn are so connected to CUPE. Like, who do you think you're fighting against? I was a teacher. My parents are teachers. My whole family's teachers. Like, who do you think we are? Like big landlords, like caking it up. A lot of people I deal with are like nurses and firefighters and just blue collar workers or people that work at the bank or an insurance company. Like, who do you think you're fighting against? You're fighting against like fellow citizens who want to like rent out part of their. And the amount of people I know, Kayla, and I'm sure you do as well, who have units that could be rented. I was in 2 yesterday. Okay, this woman's got 2 units that she could rent out any moment, but she's hesitating on both of them. She probably won't rent out the main unit in her basement, in her parents' basement, but she might rent out half of a duplex. Why is she hesitating? Because the other half of the duplex is rented out to somebody who's doing all sorts of nasty stuff, and she can't get him out. And I'm sure you've heard this story a million times before. It's just all too common, right? When landlords are fearful for their safety, fearful of the fact that they can't get a tenant out if they're in there, fearful of losing. The amount of landlords that I've spoken to, just as a realtor, who have lost in excess of 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand. It's insane. These aren't small numbers. So you mentioned some numbers earlier on, right? The fines that you could possibly receive as a landlord who issues, sort of a bad faith notice. Well, what about those are, by the way, hypothetical. First of all, you have to issue a bad faith notice. Somebody's got to prove it. There's a really, really long step between here and a $100,000 fine. But how far is the distance between here and 20 to 50 grand worth of damage in your place? You're this close. Any landlord is like this close. All the tenant has to do is stop paying you for 6 months to a year, do some damage to your property. There goes 50 grand. Yeah. And they don't realize that. They don't. I have a very, very keen understanding of this, having been somebody who's ripped apart houses and put them back together. I could rewire a house, recon a house.
It's government involvement. Government involvement slows every process down.
It's crazy that I hate to say it, but the scariest words in the English language are, "I'm here from the government and I'm going to help." It's just,
I actually heard a politician say that at one of her meetings. I was like, oh my gosh, you just said that. It's perfect. It's perfect to have those words said, because no matter which way you look at it, like, I think the private sector is more of a support and a solution. Obviously, when you think about NDP, they think the government's going to come in and they're going to be the ones that are coming to the rescue to bring this affordability. Obviously, they're not. I like how I'm just highlighting this comment here, is that the important thing to note too is that there's N13s for illegal basements. So how many people are doing these inspections, finding out that they're not legal, and now they have to go through the landlord and tenant board in order to evict those tenants because the city had intervened, right? So this is a great comment to say to what is actually happening. As you were talking there, I was looking up an article that I actually saved today on January 21st, CBC, number of homeless ODSP OW recipients in Ontario surge 72% since 2019 report. So when you look at homeless ODSP and OW, we've talked about this on the channel before, about these are the people who are not making the cut to these private housing rental units because the government has failed their job and creating a dispute process for the landlords to go to, which the landlord and tenant board, they have municipalities intervening. Tenants have full rights and legal help, not like some of our landlords who don't have the funding to get legal assistance. But when you listen to the Waterloo Council meeting, they make it look like landlords, we have the top-notch paralegals to support us.
Yeah, this is Sorry, I'll cut in there on two fronts. Number one is municipalities putting roadblocks in the way. I cannot
Yep.
tell you how many times I've been mid renovation, and I'm sure you know other landlords or renovators, anybody who does the Burr method. Somebody like in my position. Once again, teachers, firefighters, just regular people who want to fix up part of their house, who go through the want to be honest and go through the legal route. And by the way, for anybody who's watching, again, I just see myself getting torn up in the comments.
No,
If
you
somebody's
know
going to
what?
put,
If you see a
you know,
comment, let me know. We got to bring it up.
no, yeah, exactly. If somebody's going to put, oh, they just want to build like, they want to be slumlords and build like, I don't know, basically unsafe units. That's nonsense. My units, respectfully, I know I'm biased, they're beautiful, like 10 out of 10, right?
They're
I
better.
do the finishes.
My units are better than my house.
Exactly. Thank you. I remember living in one of my units, and I lived in the bad unit and rented out the good one, and they're all like stunning. Like the units that I create are better than my house. They really are. So that's absolute nonsense. Number one. Number two, no landlord in the right mind wants one of their tenants to get hurt. So I pay a small fortune every year for salt to make sure like everything's salted and everything, the snow's plowed properly, or that everything was inspected by the ESA, being the Electrical Safety Authority, or the fire department, or this, that it has all my units have everything is to code, everything is done properly. But when once again, municipalities don't understand that nothing happens in a vacuum. So if you send out, for example, inspectors that push your project back by 2 months, nobody thinks, oh, that project's pushed back by 2 months, not that big a deal. It's just 2 months of extra mortgage. No, it's not. It's 2 months of extra mortgage plus all the contractors that you have to like kind of reorganize, plus the what's it called, the what's the type of insurance that you need? Builder's risk insurance, which
Yep.
is quadruple, by the way, what regular home insurance is. People don't understand these costs unless you really go through it. You don't like understand the pain of having to deal with that. Same thing goes for, you got a crappy tenant
But
that for whatever
Jason,
reason.
no one has time to sit here and listen to what it's like because
Yeah,
that doesn't make headlines. That doesn't get them votes, right?
yeah,
They don't get to see what we're dealing with, except who does? The mayor of Hamilton,
yeah,
who the mayor of Hamilton who went through the city
yeah,
to get the property condemned in order to
yeah,
evict her ex-husband
yeah. That's
instead of going to the landlord and tenant board. And now there's code of conducts against what she's done, which I don't want to get too much into it because we have so many passionate people in Hamilton that want to
yeah,
share the story, and I just know I'm following it like nobody's business.
yeah.
But
Tell our
sometimes
viewers who that is, by the way. Who is the mayor of Hamilton currently?
Andrea Horath. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're just gonna call her Andrea. And guess what? NDP leader, capping her taxes at 4.25%. This is the crime level is crazy in Hamilton since she's taken over. Like, we have to start holding these elected officials accountable, and it sucks because we have some really good people that I could see really doing a good job being an elected official. But guess what?
yeah,
We can't
yeah,
get them because the
yeah.
money that's there and the hostility between staff and the other counselors, and it's just they don't make it movable. You can't really get your job done. You have to like scratch your back, you scratch mine type of deal.
Yeah.
And you see them doing it because of special interest groups. And that's where we see Acorn, trying to be that special interest group and trying to push this policy and making it look like they're being evicted. But then I want people, I posted the link to this council meeting for Waterloo in this video because I want you to hear about them complaining about the ceiling caving in. I want you to hear about the rodents that are happening and the mold that these tenants, these delegates were complaining about. So you complain about the maintenance, but you now want to stop your landlord from evicting you to complete that maintenance so that you can move back into a safe
It's
place. Like,
it's circular logic that goes nowhere. It's
I,
just
I just don't get that. Now, again, like, we can go ahead and you're going to bypass it, and all they're going to do is hope for the tenants to complain to the city. So we're going to pay taxpayer money to have a full-time employee to take complaints from tenants who say, I got an N13. Well, okay, that N13 can be valid. Like, why are we making our taxpayers pay for someone to listen
Right.
to a complaint that there's a valid N13. The only thing that N13s or anything from the city should have been dealt with is to deal with bad actors. But why, when the province has created something to deal with bad actors? The
Again, it's a
penalties
typical.
and the consequences are there for people to do bad actors. What they're doing is discouraging people like me and you from wanting to be a landlord in the city of Waterloo. They're discouraging developers who want to buy properties and come in there and demolish a triplex or a sixplex to build 20, 30 units.
Right.
They're discouraging that. They're discouraging any landlords who want to come in and do renovations to their property. I would rather, like, if I had this in my city right now,
Yeah.
I'll just let it go until property standards come in. They give me an order. That order I can now take to the landlord and tenant board to expedite my eviction, because I'm just going to leave it that way, because financially it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? They don't understand that it's a business, and the business needs, the numbers need to make sense.
Right.
Our policies need to make sense. And I know our provincial elected officials know our landlords are leaving Ontario and
I was
BC
just going to say.
are deemed to be the worst in all of Canada because of their policies.
Right.
So if they want to, like, Bill 60 was a step in that right direction.
Yeah.
But now it's a step for our provincial government to step in
Yeah.
and put their municipalities in their spot so that they don't captivate on this crisis, just so that they can make it look like they've done something for tenants. Because no matter which way you look at this,
Yeah.
tenants may think that this was a win for them. In reality, we're going to see people bypass this landlord licensing, because good luck fighting it in court. Like one of
Yeah.
our members had
Huge
said,
loss.
like,
Yeah.
I think provincial trumps municipal. And
You,
it
you
sucks
got it.
that we have this. We like, I don't even have time. Like I'm fighting the province, and it's like, okay, I gotta go to Hamilton, and then I gotta go to Toronto, and
Yeah.
then we
It's too
gotta go
many.
to, like,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to do this, guys?
Yeah. No, it's too many, and unfortunately, once again, nothing exists in a vacuum. If you decide to pass legislation or do this or that or the other, basically bully people, go for it. Again, landlords aren't these big bad wolves that people seem to think we are. We're people like you and I. And so it's funny you mentioned that landlords are leaving the province. I was at an investment meeting recently, a real estate investors club, typical, one of the clubs around southwestern Ontario. And when the host speaker asked, how many of you are considering leaving Ontario? This was before Bill 60 was passed. And a lot of people were really feeling the pain, especially after COVID. And that, especially during COVID, landlords were just roundly abused, myself included, from tenants who knew that they basically couldn't get evicted. The amount of people who raised their hand when the speaker asked how many of you are considering leaving the province or have left the province, and in other words, you've sold your investment, you've moved to the province, and you're taking your investment money with you, and you're generally going south of the border, approximately 2/3 of the room, so 66%.
Wow. Yeah.
But you're not talking, and these are the people. So again, people think that everything happens within a vacuum. They think the word economy is just this sort of like magical thing that gives us all the goods, food, services that we enjoy on a daily basis. But no, like society, just like human life, just like life in general, is a fragile thing. You can't mess around with it that much. And if you do, I mean, you can see the effects on everything, the environment, your own body. If you put the wrong things into it,
And
nothing happens in a vacuum.
we need to care about this. Like, landlords are leaving, and we say we're leaving, but as a taxpayer, I want you guys to understand that it puts more pressure on taxpayers. It puts more pressure on taxpayers to provide the housing. That's to
Right.
build it, manage it, maintain it, and subsidize it.
Right.
Then we have the taxpayers who are going to be paying for the homeless shelters, the
Right.
emergency shelters. We have
Right.
warming centers that we're paying for, which are well over $800,000 to just run a
It's crazy.
homeless a warming center. Then we have the cost of housing people inside of our hospitals because of our homelessness. We have programs and government grants being given out to multiple organizations that do the exact same thing, which is to put people on a government housing waiting list, a
Right.
waiting list that is 10 to 22 years for social housing. And I'm hearing it's 30 years for supportive housing. So
Right.
the mess in itself of what's happening, because we're paying like $40,000 just to clean up an encampment. And when you see this type of money, like this type of money of one-time fee of 365 with an ongoing of $450,000,
Yeah, no.
and that is based on this is based on 34 applications over 5-year span, because everyone should understand landlords don't want to go through this. We don't want to go through the landlord tenant board. We don't have to pay for the landlord tenant board. We don't have to put the renovations into a property and offer it back to the same tenant, but we do want to um, do it when the tenants do vacate, if they do. But this is another problem
Yeah.
for Ontario, because we don't have an end of term lease. So we have to utilize these type of applications because we don't have that end of term lease. And again, it's just that, and they find that success. The Acorn, they mentioned that as well. Like, oh, we were fighting the Bill 60. I'm like, yeah, you guys were screaming like children in the gallery.
Yeah.
You find that to be appropriate? Okay. Sure, let our elected officials play the game and continue to play politics in the housing industry, and we'll continue to see our housing crisis getting worse, and we'll continue to see our landlords leave Ontario and get into different states, different countries, and that's what's happening. When we see it, and they're not just leaving based on policies, right? They're leaving because they see tenants who are not paying their rent, and we're seeing 9 weeks. Irwin had mentioned that he's now waiting 9 weeks until he gets a hearing. It's going to be 30 to 60 days before he gets his order. And then there could be another approximately about 6 weeks before he gets a sheriff. And that's why, I reminded him through the message that he tagged me in, is that I want you to make sure that you're reporting that tenant to front lobby. Like, you need to be able
That's
to
what you say.
report that tenant to front
Yeah.
lobby. You do not need an order. You do not need the tenant's consent. You can
You got
report that to front lobby. They share it with Equifax
it.
and
Right.
Landlord Credit Bureau on a monthly basis.
And
This
can
is
you
the game changer that everyone needs to understand.
Thank you. And I was waiting for a couple of game changers like this, but I first found out about Front Lobby and Landlord Credit Bureau, which are both godsends. And they're godsends, I want to make it clear as well, to good tenants too. Because somebody can build up their credit. Somebody can go from being, like, let's say, a newcomer or just received my permanent residency card to having, iffy credit or no credit to having built up credit in 6 months to a year, right? Some reasonable time frame. So
Why isn't our government using it for
I,
people who are in government housing, paying their rent on time every month? Help them build their credit, so if they ever wanted to leave government housing, they have credit that could help them.
yeah,
Instead, taxpayers are paying for people to live in government housing for life. It's like the
and
lottery.
exactly. It's again, what you just hit on is basically the problem with quite a bit of government policy. It's more about dependency as opposed to empowerment.
Yeah.
And so, ironically, the same people who were just yelling at Premier Ford a couple weeks ago over Bill 60, ironically, will benefit from it. They'll benefit because stronger laws, stronger regulation generally leads to more of fill in the blank here. More, in this case, more housing,
Yeah.
better regulation, a fairer and more balanced society leads to a better society for everybody, not a worse one. So, again, the position that I believe the gentleman who was yelling at Premier Ford in the legislature is taking is that, once again, landlords are all bad. We're all out to get you, and I don't know what to say to these people. It's like we're on different planets.
Well, this is where our community needs to come together, right? We need to support the municipal councillors and mayors who get the common sense factor, who legitly stood up against the overwhelming support for policies like this.
Yeah,
And even though they look bad, especially how intimidating this Acorn group was being there, and she
right.
still stood her ground. We need to support her. Support Dorothy, the mayor of Waterloo. We need to be supporting our conservatives because we got Bill 60. Yes, we're waiting for the details to roll out, but I'm telling you, my experience doing this for over 15 years, seeing the NDPs, seeing the Liberals our best chance is going to be with conservatives. I need you to follow your conservatives at the MP provincial level. I want you to connect with them, like them, follow them on social media, donate to their campaign. You know, it's important for us to donate. You got to pay to play, unfortunately, because they do need tools in order for them to continue supporting this industry. And we need to show our support. We got to show them, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for putting your neck on the line. Let us tell everyone that we know within our community to vote for conservatives, to donate, to volunteer. I know this election coming up at the municipal, I've never knocked on doors for councillors or provincial. I got my running shoes out. Okay. I got my running shoes out. I'm going to be knocking on the door for the city councillors that I feel that have that common sense approach, that it's about running their city as a business, running it like a family, and not running it just because you have a special interest group trying to play your strings like a puppet, right? And that's what I see. That's what I've been able to captivate as I've been advocating and speaking with elected officials across the board. And I think it's about giving you guys that information as well. So even though you don't think that these elected officials are listening, I want you to send emails to your elected officials at your city level, CC everybody in it, include the Minister of Housing, Doug Ford, the Ontario Ombudsman, who's been actively investigating the Landlord and Tenant Board. I want you to be able to write a letter to the editor. You know, we have Spaces. I'm a host in the Cambridge Housing and Real Estate group on Spaces. Come over there. You can put a news link in there. Give your 2 cents, and then you can share that space link on social media. So that's a little trick to share some news outlets onto social media so that we're actually getting the full detail of what's happening. I know that I put on our group, Ontario Landlords Watch group, there is a file area. So I did upload the letter that I sent to the City of Waterloo Council, as well as Rob Flack, Doug Downey, and of course the associate to Mr. Flack, Grayson Smith, letting them know what's happening down here. I want them to intervene. I want them to know what's happening and knowing how they're spending taxpayer dollars, because the way that the municipalities are spending taxpayer dollars is going to reflect the vision that people see on the provincial government as well. So they need to know, don't give any more money to the city until they start doing good things with it. And I think we need to hold them accountable. And I really wish that there was a rule or some type of rule that we can say, you guys are against the code of conduct here. Your goal is to make sure you're spending taxpayers' monies wisely, and knowing that there was only 34 renovation applications being sent to the Landlord and Tenant Board, in which the landlord had to file. They felt the need to spend that type of money. And we'll bring that up again before we leave, because I want people to have a clear understanding that this is not pocket change.
No.
This is not pocket change. Our taxes are going to go up because the City of Waterloo feels the need to duplicate services. And that's another problem that we have right across the province, that we have a lot of organizations that are receiving funding, that it's a duplication of services. So if we want to hit it where it hurts, we need to be able to be outspoken. And don't be shy. I want you guys to really understand that we need to pay attention to what's happening. If what's happening in your city, I want you to send it to me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on our group, Ontario Landlords Watch. We have our public page, Ontario Landlords Watch. I'm on TikTok. I don't know why, but I am. I'm not quite dancing, but I am like giving you some, information of what these tenant unions are doing. I put that on TikTok because I'm telling you, people like to see how crazy things can get. Definitely on LinkedIn. A lot of our elected officials are on LinkedIn. So I encourage you all to get on LinkedIn as well. Don't spam them, be respectful. I think they know the issues that we are dealing with. I think we need to be more mindset on solutions to our government. And this is where I'm going to be spending the beginning of my 2026 creating a report to give our recommendations. And this is where I'm going to bring the group together to give me that information. And we're going to bring it to the province to say, okay, Bill 60's passed. How do we want to see that be pushed through the landlord and tenant board? What processes do we be implementing in order to do so? I know we have a lot of people that have a lot of stories that have been coming to me the last couple of weeks when I'm on vacation. I'm going to be bringing them to you. I think this is a great opportunity for us to put a face to the community, people like Jason who are providing housing to people who are in need, and understand that not every tenant is going to be a homeowner, and not everyone has the credit, not everyone has the down deposit. But for us as landlords, we put everything on the line and we want to be respected as a business. But you keep putting red tape and you keep putting this this divide. We're just going to go into friendlier atmospheres and who respects us.
Right. And that's why, the Landlord Credit Bureau and Front Lobby don't exist for nothing, right? They didn't come out of a vacuum either. And I was wondering if you could put up that slide again, not the other slide that you just put up, but the one that talked about how many units were available in Waterloo.
This one?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, okay, so we've got the number of units that are available in Waterloo currently are how many? Do you know? Is that in the slides anymore?
An estimate of 20,400 rental units.
Yeah, that's right. In 2024, I can see that right there. So compared with Waterloo's estimated, by the way, estimated, and it's estimated for a reason. Once again, a lot of rental units are essentially black. Yeah, they're black market. They're underground, or they're just simply not registered because nobody went through the permitting process for one reason or another. Generally, again, the landlords that I've found that have not gone through permitting on purpose have done so because of like nightmare stories of, city inspectors who are just going to drag them through the mud. I wonder if the City of Waterloo has done, in much the same way as they've done a budget and sort of an estimation as to how much these programs will cost. I wonder if anybody at the City of Waterloo has bothered to do a budget or estimation as to the following. How many units will we lose out of Waterloo if these resolutions are passed?
Yeah.
How many units are we going to lose in municipality after municipality if we become more and more aggressive towards landlords, as opposed to understanding that landlords and tenants are essentially two sides of the same coin, and it's a symbiotic relationship.
Jason, they're not only doing that, they're also coming up with policies that say if you're a developer coming in and you're taking away your affordable unit through your new build, they expect you to bring back the affordable unit and bring that person that you evicted back into it. Like I don't, you can't even make this stuff up. This is people using literally just sound bites to get picked up by media, to get picked up by tenant unions and tenants in itself, to make it look like they're doing good. If they actually sat back and realized what they could do to encourage more landlords to get into their city and treat them like a business, we're going to see competition, just like we're seeing competition now when they finally put the brakes on the colleges, allowing people to come into the communities. And they were coming in quite quickly, and why rents have increased significantly. And now we're seeing rents decrease because of it, because of the demand. But at the same time, it's also giving landlords and investors a little bit like, do I really want to get into that community right now? Do I want to get in there? Do I want to explore different provinces? Do I want to explore different states? Or do I want to invest in something completely different, like silver? Like, have you seen the price of silver? Oh, yeah. I joined that bandwagon a lot earlier.
Right? So, as an example, you just gave a perfect example, right? Silver's up 60% year over year, approximately. Then there's all manner of dividend-paying stocks, ETFs, Bitcoin, gold, any sort of hard asset. Basically, the best investing advice I've ever gotten is own something that the government can't print because the government can't manipulate it. Right?
Oh, that was good.
As long as you,
if I had like a mic drop,
and again, it really kills me when I hear these policies, especially from the mayor of Toronto right now is just
she's running the NDP train. She's running it.
It's insane. It's
smart. Like, you guys got to vote in a new mayor. Like, let's be real.
It's crazy. I would take back the premier's younger brother, or his older brother. Anyway, any day of the week.
Rob, like, that like, and again, like, because of what he did in his policies, they had to try to discredit him somehow. And yeah, it sucks that that a mayor that was smoking crack is better than
And he was, by the way, like, I don't want to badmouth Rob Ford. Like, he obviously human being, he's got his faults. But when I hear, like, I spoke to his niece recently. I met his niece who sells this like kind of like gourmet cookies. Do you know what I'm talking
yeah.
about? Lovely lady. And when I look at certain policies of certain politicians, even if they are like a little bit flawed, like former Mayor Ford, not a perfect guy, but definitely cared about his constituents in a way that I just don't see from a lot of these kind of ivory tower type politicians. And our current mayor is just, as I said, like communism light. If she got her way, yeah, I don't understand where they're coming from.
They're worried about media. They're worried about these interest groups who do hold like a network of people. Like, it still votes, just like QP. Look how many people QP represents. And even for individual companies, I'm not going to say, because one is a pretty big one in our city and I don't want to insult them in any way, but
No,
they
no,
send
no.
out memos to
Yeah,
their employees telling
yeah,
people who they support based on what's going to be good for their business. And
yeah,
this is where it becomes struggling to find out, like, these are the people who you're reaching out to. They're the ones that kind of vote. Like, but deep down, I think we as a community need to come out and be a little bit more vocal. And I want to use this
yeah.
video to say, like, if you know someone who's going to be running for their municipal council, put their campaign link in here. Like, we got to start like knowing who's who, because it's hard to say, like, because they literally have a a top 5 topics, especially housing.
Sure. Mhm.
They have a very controlled atmosphere of who gets to ask the type of questions. Usually the
Sure.
Chamber of Commerce is you don't really get to know, and they're always very careful on how
Yeah,
they respond, right? Because no
yeah.
matter which way you bring them a question, it doesn't matter. This is about votes. This is about, you have to go with their mindset of who they are, and you got to dig a little deeper than what they're telling you at the podium. So if you have someone that you feel is very common sense mindset to the business aspect and not going to fall prey to a special interest group, please let me know who they are. I would
Mhm.
love to know who they are because we have a situation where I think a lot of people have lost faith in their government. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people lost faith federally, provincially, and municipally. But most importantly, there's not a lot of education out there for people to understand what level of government does what.
Yeah.
And we need to be the people
Well,
to try to help guide them.
ironically as well, Kyle, I think that kind of like tie this conversation all together is what I found with a lot of government policy in general, and it comes from both the right, the left, and everything in between. But
Yeah.
obviously, certain parties are more prone to this sin, I'd say, than others. The government creates the problem, and then they find a solution to fix it, and then of course that fixing it costs fixing the huge price tag. So once again, tying it back to housing, if you look at Canada over the long arc of human history, and I mean literally the entirety of human history, wars have been fought over resources. We
Yeah.
live in the largest free, let's call it overall. Canada's got its problems, but overall, we live in the largest free country in the world that the world has ever known, that humanity has ever known. We have a overall population density that's next to nothing. Um, and you got to be kidding me! You can't tell me we can't throw together the natural resources, the human resources, the willpower to produce enough housing for our citizens. This is absolute nonsense. A
There's
couple
money
of
to be
changes, and
made. There's money to be made in a crisis.
it's too bad, really.
There's money to be made in a crisis. If you
And
look
that's
at what is actually happening, there's people making money off of a crisis, and that is the bottom line. Just
it's
like this licensing, let's say this for an example. You got this licensing, we got more government employees that are going to be hired. You now secured a vote for that in particular people, because are you going to vote against a government that employs you? No. And that's the fastest growing job creation in Canada is government jobs.
right.
You're going to have, a nonprofit, potentially tenant union supporting you because you're just giving them $20,000 for support. It's sad to see that this is the way that our government has created this game. And honestly, they say it's the silly season through election time because people pull out the most craziest of things when it comes
Yes.
down to the election, even though it's a little bit of a salary. And honestly, like your whole life is publicized, like and you can't do anything about it. Like, but we need to do more. I think we need to do more as landlords. We need to get more organized. I'm working on a newsletter for everyone to like, so we don't have Facebook, even though Facebook sends me notifications saying that we're pushing out really great content and that they're pushing us out there even further. But I do want to create a newsletter for everyone so that we can stay connected through email, so I can tell you what's happening, the call to action, what I need you to do, because we're going to have power in numbers and we need to get organized, and we need to get organized on our own without government funding. I need to have your voices like Jason's. I need your opinion. I want you to tell our government, who potentially could be listening to these shows, what your feelings are, what your opinions are, what your solutions are going to be. I'm going to put the link to where if you want to be one of my guests, I'm putting that into the chat right now for you as well. I'm also going to give you a link to Front Lobby. This is where you can report tenants' unpaid rent or utilities to the credit bureaus impacting the tenant's credit, or you can help reward your tenants who pay on time, help them out. You can do that as well through Front Lobby as well. But this is what it's all about, in exposing what's happening at municipal level, what's happening at the provincial level, and we're starting to dabble with federal. We just had a meeting with the shadow minister for the Conservatives at the federal level, Scott Aikenson, with MP Connie Cody, giving them obviously our thoughts on what's happening with the housing, what we need them to do at that federal level. But we were really just venting about what was happening at the provincial and municipal level. I want to thank everyone's support in what I do and how I do it. I know it's just, I'm very passionate about this topic. I do enjoy meeting different landlords, trying to help them navigate this chaos. I love hearing other people's opinions on what we need and what we need to see changing at that provincial or municipal level, so that I can be your voice whenever I do get a chance to speak with government, either in person and or sending them emails. But I do want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight, and thank you for subscribing to our Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel. Facebook kind of deletes it after a little bit, so making sure that you're subscribed to the Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel for our future shows. We have another one that's going to be happening next Thursday on the 29th. I'm going to leave it a little bit of a secret. We have two things that are happening, and we do have a huge announcement at the end of the month from Front Lobby. I am sworn to secrecy, and unfortunately, I can't say it, and it bugs the crap out of me. I don't know why they told me, but I'm going to end this so I don't say anything, because I'm all about the truth. I'm all about real conversations, and I really want to make sure that I'm bringing your conversation to our elected officials. And I want to thank everyone for watching. Jason, before we do end off, to stay on the line, we're going to have a nice little chat after this, but thank you everyone